This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right. And naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast from New Hampshire. I have Nadja Fromm, and she is a corporate breakup coach. And she has an amazing story where she summoned the courage, ditched her 9 to 5, and now is impacting lives, helping clients turn the 9 to 5 grind into a thriving business rebellion. I'm really happy to have her on to pick her brain, share knowledge and experience for the audience. Nadja, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Christopher.
Yeah. I love people when they shun the status quo and just all these mainstream ideas that are shoved down our throats, and we start to question. So what is your story and how did you get to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, my story starts with my career starting over 20 years ago in Europe. I'm originally German, born and raised up in the north, very rural north of Germany. And I started my career very early in advertising agencies and later on moved on to marketing positions and also already jumped into startups. So it was always this potpourri of different ways to engage with consumers and brands. And so that's how I grew up. And fast forward that's now 2018. So 8 years ago, seven something years ago. I had a client in Europe. It was Lindt Chocolate. And they actually offered me a job in the US as the director of marketing. And that's obviously something you don't just say no to. So that was for me definitely a pivotal moment in my life. So I packed up all my stuff and I moved to New Hampshire in the US, all the way up in the Northeast, all by myself. So completely restarted my life and entered the American corporate life. So been there, done that, right? Like really worked with these huge companies, later on worked with Kraft Heinz. And I always felt this drive of growing and climbing the career ladder. I always felt that maybe after the next promotion, once you really reach and make it to the top, that's where fulfillment lays and waits for me. But it was, spoiler alert, it wasn't. For me, all I realized is that I've been chasing somebody else's version of success. I thought, like the way you said it, it's like something's just the 9 to 5 concept is just shoved down our throats, and society says that is what success looks like. And in the end, it was the big pay, the big title, the big teams, and the late night shifts and all that. But I made it all the way to the top, and still I felt empty. And after the third burnout over 20 years of my career, 3 burnouts. The last one really was that a moment of not necessarily just a breakdown, but it was a breakthrough moment for me because I realized that I'm not going to move on like this. This is not my path. And throughout my healing journey after that, I realized that the 9 to 5 is not made for us, not made for everyone. Many people are successful with it, and that is absolutely great. For me, it wasn't. And I know that there are many people out there that just feel that they can't be themselves. They don't really feel fully aligned with what, their job is doing. And in the end, they're just grinding and they're pouring their heart and soul into a job and into building somebody else's dream, while their own idea of fulfillment and freedom and living really aligned with your values and mission is just collecting dust somewhere. And so that was for me the breakthrough moment of solving the problem of being unfulfilled for myself. And then with that, providing that now via coaching and consulting to my clients that want to build their own business, already have a young business, I just want to take it up to the next level. And that's where I come in. And it is incredibly fulfilling. So that was definitely for me the success pivot, even though it is not easy every day, but that's how I got here today.
Yeah, amazing story. And a lot more people are doing that, especially after they realized in 2020, when the whole world shut down, they really had time to slow down and reevaluate. And a lot of people broke up with their jobs and their bosses. They quit their careers, got divorced. So now we know that what clients come to you for. There's quite interesting. My one question is, how do you prevent this phenomenon where you're hustling and grinding and you make it to the top and you say, is that this I'm not fulfilled, or is this all there is? How do you prevent clients from even starting, because you don't want to waste all that time and energy into something and then you reach it and then you're like, I did the wrong thing. For clients listening, how do you prevent them from going down that wrong path in the first place?
Having a career, building your career is so individual and so personal. And so it really is, I want to emphasize that for many people, it's just a job and you get the paycheck, and that is what pays the bills, and that is fueling your life, and you feel fulfillment throughout other places throughout your life. That is absolutely wonderful. And then there are a bunch of people who feel that there's more to clocking in at 9 a.m. or 8, and you have your boss breathing down the neck early on a Monday, and you feel the Sunday scaries when you're getting ready for another week. And if you feel that pit in your stomach, when that is a sign for you to look out for, that I want to offer the solution, that there's more to it. And the number one thing that people come to me with, where they say, oh, I just don't know where to start. So it's either people are completely paralyzed because they don't really know what will be the next step, and how do I get out of this fear of failure. And so the first thing that I always tell people I'm interacting with is that fear is a very natural response to change, because our brain is programmed, the little salamander brain, it's programmed to keep us safe, and comfort is safety. And so we're programmed to stay in a place where we know it is good for us, it is safe. We train to celebrate stability and predictability in our lives. And stepping out of that is literally the opposite. And becoming your own boss and stepping out of that perceived security of a paycheck, that is scary. And when you really feel this fear of moving forward from there and taking the leap, then typically I tell you that if you have this fear of jumping, then it might as well be that you're just standing at the edge of something really amazing. And it does take guts to jump because it is unknown. But the good thing is that you're not alone with that. And so there are a lot of resources out there. And while building your own business can be very isolating and lonely and scary, that's where I'm really trying to create this community. For me, it's more than just a job or a business or a coaching endeavor. It is a movement, that there is other ways for you to live your life and to build a business and to work on something that is not only helping you with financial independence, but at the same time also gives you a life that is fulfilling, and you find something that lights you up without burning you out. So there is a way. And again, the number one part is always, if you're afraid, you might just be at the edge of something exciting. So take that leap.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through October 29th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends October 29th, 2025.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
Yeah, very interesting. Lean into your edge. And I'm always talking to people living on the cutting edge, such as yourself. One thing that I've noticed in a lot of coaches, such as yourself, and with especially the client avatars, usually they're very like they're type A, they're highly driven, very successful professionals, high income, but like they're doing it either they're running away from something, they have mommy or daddy issues, and or they're running like towards something they think it's gonna fulfill them and fill this void that they from this trauma that they sustained in childhood. For the parents out there listening to this, what is your response to how can they prevent from, because I've seen a lot of my colleagues, they had helicopter parents and they're forced, they shoved down their throat that they're going to be doctors, and I saw the kind of the resentment and the turmoil that it caused. So how do you, for the parents out there, how do you balance this fine line between parenting and allowing the kid to discover themselves and avoid going down the wrong path?
It's such an interesting perspective and how to combine that with career planning and finding fulfillment. I think one advice on that part, and as a caveat here, that I do not have own children, I have fur babies. So for me, it is more like secondhand observations of my best friends having children and my nephews. But so what I would probably tap into is encouraging to listen to your own gut and to listen to your own instincts. And oftentimes our body already knows. And that's why journaling for me is always the key. Your body oftentimes already knows what's going on, what's maybe blocking you or what is exciting you. And sometimes the brain needs a moment to catch up to it. So if you encourage young people around you to listen more to their instinct and be more dialed into your intrinsic motivation, understanding what are my values, what is actually important to me versus extrinsic validation. So as hard as it is, because again, society is all built on that. We learned that in school, we're following the rules and we raise our hands if you want to speak. And in work, it's the same. At work, we want to make sure our boss is pleased and we're going to follow the rules and we don't make mistakes. And that is the quite literal opposite of what building your own business is all about, and fulfilling your own dreams and taking charge of your own destiny in that sense. And so I would always go back to thinking about how can you encourage young people around you to listen to their selves, to listen to their own bodies, rather than trying to get approval and always getting the approval from the outside.
Yeah, I love that. Internal validation versus external. And what is your advice for people listening to this? They could be in their early careers and they're listening to this and they're like, they've got all these messages, like, for example, if you're a med student or law student or dental student, or you're like an MBA program and all your colleagues, they're like, oh, I got this 6-figure salary from this company, or I got this residency or this position and I'm going to make this X amount. And what is your advice to tune out all of that noise and stay in your lane and avoid the kind of this getting into this rat race comparison envy trap?
Having a big salary, having the nice cars, having the nice house, having the vacations, that is great. I'm not going to lie, that is wonderful. And I definitely enjoyed having the big paychecks coming with the big titles. But what I always would go back to is, how does this really feel? Do you feel empty inside when you think about that? Does it feel more like a push, like somehow you feel like you're chasing something, or is it something that is truly pulling you in? So it always goes back to listen to your own instinct and trying to reflect. Is this really something that would make me happy, or would it make my parents happy, or is it just because I want to get my neighbors jealous? So in the end, listen, having the monetary rewards of a career like that if that is fulfilling and if that feels right for you, go for it. Great. Money makes the world go round. And at the same time, it's not the only path to true fulfillment, to be successful. And I think successful is not always measured in how many digits your bank account statement has. So it all comes down to, do you truly understand what your own values are and what your mission is? And I always say, if you find your why in your mission, in your work, in your career, if you find your why and you define your why that is so big, your why is so much bigger than all the excuses you might find on the way and all the obstacles you might encounter. If your why is bigger than that, you will find a way towards that. And so it's almost like a lighthouse in the distance. So if you find your why, then you're going to find a way through the obstacle course towards it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you talk about just like staying in your own lane. And it reminds me, like when I was younger, all my, like in high school, like all my friends, they were getting jobs. And I went to my parents. I'm like, yeah, they're making money and they're working at X, Y, and Z. And then my parents were like, you're not focused on school and stay in your lane. And so in that sense, it was good to stay in your lane. The follow-up question I have for you is, you discover your why and your passions. How do you find the people around you that support you? Because obviously if you're around like the corporate or you're going to be all these messages, so it's going to be harder. But if you disengage from that and find your community, talk about how you select your community to help you propel you forward to your goals.
That is such a great question, Christopher. I love that. I love to talk about how do you find your tribe. I give monthly workshops, and so that's one of the biggest exercises for us to sit down and define who are your people. And it is so incredibly important. You might be familiar with the concept of the 5 people you spend most time with in your life. Define who you are, what decisions you make, even what risks you take. And so you want to be incredibly mindful with that. Who do you spend your time with? And in the end, I always recommend that if you want to create a life for yourself, if you want to rise in your career, it's always important to go after what are those 5 people that you're going to spend most time with, that are going to be good role models. They're going to support you. They're going to be your cheerleaders or mentors or coaches. So to lift you up, to believe in you when you maybe don't for a minute. So you got to be incredibly mindful about finding your tribe and your pack, the pack you run with, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that really helped with clients was once you discover your why and your passions, you have to slowly disengage from the people that don't support you or question you, and you have to gravitate towards the community that, with the similar mindsets and the similar beliefs, so that you can ultimately achieve filling that gap between where you are and where you want to be. We're coming close to the end of the conversation, and talk about just when you just, for those, they're like on the brink, they're like, I can't stand my job or boss and I want to really pursue my passions. What is the number one piece of advice that you have for them to start getting them on the right track?
The very first thing for you to do is to truly understand what that is that you want to serve. What is it that you want to do? Who do you want to talk with? And with me having over 20 years of experience being a marketing executive, the first thing that I tell people is that businesses don't fail because the ideas are bad. Businesses often fail because they're bad at marketing. And it often feels like marketing is a nice to have, or you need a gazillion dollar to talk about your business to do that. That's not the truth. The most important thing is that you have a very strong foundation, a very strong marketing foundation for you to understand who's your ideal client profile. What is the unique value that you want to provide? What are the problems you're solving for them? What are the pain points that ideal client client profile is encountering. And once you define that, you can really go deep into problem solving mode. And that is going to make it so much easier for you to talk about your service or your product. And so to then ultimately go out and create, this is for me, in your future clients' minds. And so that is where a strong marketing foundation is the absolute make or break for every business. And think about Apple, it's all about the marketing. In the end, any other phone can do it too, but Apple charges 3 times the price. And it's all about the marketing and the branding and this really strong foundation that they built with the whole community around that. And so that's the first step. Make sure that you go really deep into defining your fundamentals before you go and start and do things. You can always tell how high a house is going to be built by how deep the foundation is going to be set. So that's always a picture I want to leave people with, is that you do need to put in the work and put in the sweat and tears to get your foundation really right. And if you don't know how, find someone who can help you with. You're not alone. Nobody does this alone. You're right. No company has been built by just one single person who done it all themselves. Never the case. So go out there, find your people, define the foundation for your business, and then double down on it. Lock in, find your niche, and then don't let go. Just because in maybe 2-3 months it doesn't work, stay at it. Try different angles. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers. So go out there, try, play around with it, even if it feels messy at first. The first step is always the hardest. And I promise you, once you take that, the second step feels so much more comfortable right away.
How can people learn more from you and connect with you and get in touch with you and work with you?
So my number one channel is LinkedIn. Like, I'm always on there. I would love to have you guys reach out. We also gonna put the website in the show notes here, but go reach out on LinkedIn. It's Nadja Fromm. My first name is with a D and a J. That is usually what A throws people off how to pronounce it, but B is a very unique name. So find me on LinkedIn, reach out, send me a DM. I love to talk. I want to hear your story. And if we're going to work together or not, it doesn't matter. For me, I just hope that with every conversation like this, I can just maybe spark a little bit of that, yes, I'm going to do this. So the intrinsic motivation, I hope that's where we can move this movement even further.
Yeah. Yeah. The greatest piece of inspiration was when I was considering jumping ship. One of my good colleagues and friends, he had started his company and then he was just blogging and creating videos. And it was like really interesting. And it really sparked my motivation and desire. So hopefully these conversations will do that for the audience and a great conversation. And I really love your authenticity and your passions, and keep up the great work.
Thank you for having me, Christopher. Great conversation.